Good evening, Booze. Yeah, what do you think, Clips? That's all new. Well, I mean, it's basically the same, but yeah, I downloaded some new music. So I kind of wanted to give it a try, shake it up a little bit. And first off, I hope you guys can hear me okay. I've got this new thing. So give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me okay. I have a green light, so I'm not muted, which doesn't mean I'm not gonna mute myself at some point because I did take my pom-pom off, or as I've said before, they're like my little training wheels, so I shouldn't touch anything up here tonight. I shouldn't, but if I do, well, there's nobody here to slap my clip. Oh, Real Housewives of Michigan? Yeah, I like that. But I think I have to be a housewife first. Um And I just like being yeah, I just like being a single girl. But tonight, I've got something I tell you guys, I started digging. And you know what? I like to dig. I've got that tractor with that big bucket on the front, and damn it, if I had a backhoe, I'm telling you what, there'd be all kinds of holes holes in my yard and everywhere else. So when I go down the rabbit holes, I'm usually down there for a little bit. So last night I called off the stream because I still had a lot more to organize. Like I had all these notes and I had no way, like I'm like I don't even know how to begin to organize this. I kind of felt like I was going to present you guys with a thesis or something. Um Not that I've ever done that before to know what that's like, but I thought that's kinda how it felt. So that's why, like, last night, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do this, I think, in 2 parts, because there's so much, and it's so interesting." And then you know what happened? I think that there's gonna be 3 parts now, only because I was what was I watching? HBO, and they've got this new 3-part show on, and it's called The Mortician, which I think kinda ties into this whole body snatching and everything else that, we're gonna talk about. So, with that, I am gonna say right up front tonight, we're gonna start off, in some tame waters. It's not gonna be too horrible, but we're pretty quickly we're gonna be in the graves tonight, guys. I wanna warn you ahead of time. So, I guess this is our trigger trigger warning. I probably need some sort of disclaimer to stick up here, um, to warn y'all that it's gonna get this grave is gonna get deep tonight. We're gonna talk about, let's see, I think it Erica? Erica was the one that bringing up the cages, the grave cages, which that's what sent me down the rabbit hole because I had a lot of questions and I couldn't remember all the details. So I had to go back and look at about body snatching and grave robbing and oh my gosh. I mean, it's wild. It wasn't just like you think it was like the UK, but oh hell no, it was going on in this country too. There was a riot in New York City at one time over grave robbing. Well, I'm sorry, not grave robbing, but body snatching. So I'm gonna get into that too. I don't know how far we're gonna get tonight. I'm giving myself 2 hours only because I'm gonna come back tomorrow night and do another part to all of this. So I'm gonna go as far as I can to see how if we get to a point that I can stop and then kinda tease you guys a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna be a little tease tonight, and I'm not gonna give you all the goodies at once. I'm gonna give you some of the goodies in the first part, and then I'm going to come back with some of the more the second part's probably gonna be the more gruesome part. But, let me pop into chat real quick and say hi to you guys real fast, because I do wanna get started with this. I'm gonna try to keep my crazy tangents, to the end, so that way I'm trying to put chapters and timestamps and stuff in these videos for you guys. I about lost my ever-loving mind the other day. I thought I had it nailed. I thought I was doing it right, and then I went back and I'm like, "Oh, no, this is all effed up." So, as you guys know, it's just a one-woman show back here. Well, I mean, I got Tansy, but really, I mean, she's my co-host, but, I mean, she's taking a stinking nap right now. So she's just about I gotta whisper this because she's about worthless when it comes to work. She's just the face of the show. That's all she's here for. That's what she told me. She's just here to look cute and to tell me what to do and when to feed her. So that's all Tansy's here for. Well, I'm sorry. Wait, I think did say she was my supervisor. So, all right. But with that, I'm going to jump into chat real quick and say hi to you guys. And I see Darlene is here. Hello, Darlene. Let me pop you guys up here real quick so I don't miss anybody because I hate that. I hate that you guys all show up and we're right on time tonight. Which is amazing that I'm really getting this. I say that and then tomorrow I'll watch. I don't know. Something will explode or my computer will fart and blow up something, but, for tonight, we're on time, so we're gonna keep it going, and hello, Clips. Clips is here, so yes, we got new tunes. I'm playing with the intro a little bit, I don't have a theme song yet. I don't know if I want one. I kinda like that. I wanted to go with, like, some crazy spooky circus music, but god, it's really hard. Like, I listened to a bunch of them, like, over the weekend, and I was like, I'm so indecisive." At some point, I'm hoping that, like, at least somebody else might help me out here, and they'll have, like, another person other than Tansy. Like I said, she's not helpful in this department. So, hopefully somebody will come in and, we can brainstorm together because I just don't know. I don't know where I want I'm a mess, you guys. I'm just a mess all the time. And hello, Jen. Jen's here, and she says, "Hi, Tombs, Darling Clips, Tombstones. I really love to share something that just happened." Ooh, yes, please, please email me. Here, let me pop it up on the screen, but it's real simple. It's just, well, if I can remember it, right here it is. I'll put it down at the bottom of the screen. For those who don't have a Ouija board, yeah, I make up stuff and it sounds really funny when I'm making it up, and then I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay, maybe that wasn't as funny as I thought it was." But yeah, anything freaky, creepy stuff, oh, please send it to me. But it's graves, ghost, DNA, all together at gmail.com. That's it for right now. I am gonna change it here eventually to just dead air time, which makes a little bit more sense since I did change the channel name. I thought I better do it now while we're small, so nobody's really confused when I don't wanna do it, like, later, like, when we're all famous and stuff, like, I don't wanna change it then, so and I like dead air time, I think it kinda fits us a little bit better because we just talk about all the dead stuff, right? And the ghouls beware, so yeah, all the ghouls, watch out tonight. If you don't like all this dead stuff, well, I don't know why you're really listening to me then. 'Cause we're gonna talk about ghosts, we're gonna talk about graves, we're gonna talk about a lot of dead people that are already dead, so if we talk any kind of true crime, they're dead people, so that's gonna be pretty dead air time. That should give you a warning that it's not gonna be, yeah, it's not gonna be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. I don't do that. Um I like witches and black cats and, to run naked in the full moonlight. No, I'm kidding, I don't do that. It's too cold outside. Um, you'll never know when you'll never need a few spare parts. I'm starting to fall apart already. Like, I got a new knee already and yeah, oof. Well, you have that cigarette, darling. Have one for me. I can't smoke. And hello, Erica. Erica, we're covering your I think you're the one who gave the suggestion to look at the grave cages. So you started all of this tonight. So if everybody gets like crazy and antsy, we're gonna blame Erica. No, but it's fascinating. This was like a topic I've always loved to really get into, especially, like, the buried alive, right? Like, there's so it's so much more folklore than probably reality, but there is some reality to it as well. So I can't completely, um, uh apparently no, we're not doing the sex. We're we're just gonna talk about dead stuff. But some people might we're gonna talk about, the body snatching. So, warning, warning, warning. I don't know how many times I'm gonna probably say that, but, um, if it's not your thing, it's I'm not gonna get that graphic, but I do have at least one slide that's a little it's not I mean, it's okay by me, but I don't know what other people find acceptable. So, yeah, and yeah, Tansy's she's either sleeping on the job or she's like adjusting the lighting because she's in charge of the lighting, which is she's not very good at that either. And hello, Megan and Megan. We're gonna do this. All right. So let's see. Oh, I never thought of that clips. I could have a couple. I was kind of thinking like once I get to the point where we're just gonna do ghost stories one night, like I tried to do, but I just didn't have enough content. Um, but when I get more content so that I can, break it down like Tuesdays we'll do this, Thursdays we'll do this, Sundays we'll go maybe we'll just keep Sundays for the ghosty stuff, but so much of this all kind of overlaps anyway, so it's a little hard for me to do that, but I could do that. Definitely could do that. So, but I'm playing around with the video editing and I thought it kind of turned out kind of cool, but it's really hard trying to pick photos of yourself out of your videos because I'm just like, "Ugh, I don't like any of them. But, um, yeah, there's a uh-oh, darling. I love raccoons, except for when they're eating my chickens, but let's see. All right. Did you get the email there then, Jen? Because I'm gonna pop that off. Well, I'll leave it up for a minute because I'm still saying hello to you guys. And um, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on these. Ouija boards are I'd like to say they're not my thing, Darlene. I'm not afraid of them. Not afraid of them, but I do use them cautiously. I mean, anything produced by, like, a game company, um, I'm not terrified of, but it's all about intent, right? So and it's all about making sure you close things up like you should. I mean, I've got one, like, you can see it back there. It's right behind me. And it came from Salem, and it was made in Salem. So and I love Salem because, like, right, I've got the family from there and all of that and the Salem witch trials, so it means something to me, and I've used it, like, twice, and neither time did it work. Like, we got nothing. So, I think I got a dud board. I think I got a lemon. I'm gonna take it back to Salem next time I go and ask them for like, trade it in. And hello, Stevie. And Stevie earmuffs. There's Stevie. Okay. I don't know if I popped you up there. I see the little ghosties. All right, and Rubicon's here. Hello, Rubicon. All right, so I see that most of you guys are here, and Erica, you are the instigator. You could be the paranormal instigator now. There's a free space open for that, so you can step into that role now if you'd like. Um, and Darlene says, "I never talked to a house to find out its name." You know what? I've never named a house. Like, I do my, like, I always name my vehicles. So, yeah, I don't know, never named a house. That's kinda it's weird that you bring that up. I like that. Um, and Megan says, "I don't use the boards, I use the medicines." Okay. I use medicines too. I don't know, like I said, I think I got a dull board, or yeah, I think I got a dead board. No pun intended there, I just don't think it works. Like, we tried twice and nothing. And I've used them in the past where that thing is like that, the planchette is, like, jumping off the board. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure I'll try it again because 'cause I'm just, yeah, I'm an idiot sometimes with these things. Um, and hello, traveling fools, and welcome, yo. Um, Clip says, "You haven't played Perfection yet, and I'm tired of the game." I remember Perfection. Wait, yeah, that was a game, right? But I don't think you could summon demons or anything with Perfection, right? I liked Connect 4, and I always thought maybe you could open portals with Connect 4, but that's just probably me. Alright. Good to know you have never lived in a vehicle. Well, I leave a mess in my vehicle sometimes that I've been told it looks like I live in there, but no, I've never lived in my vehicle. But damn, I there during COVID there, I almost thought, like, I was, like, gonna just sell everything and buy, like, one of those school buses and just go around the country, but my kid had to go to school. So and I didn't wanna homeschooling sucked during the pandemic. I never wanna do that again. So, yeah, he's staying in school. Maybe once he's done with school, though, which is, like, he'll graduate next year, so I might I'm gonna have some fun. And oh, what? Megan, what are you sitting on fire over there? Darlene, it's a dead board or a dud board. Both. We can pick either one of those. So, yeah. And Clip says, "No, but it's a game that terrifies me." I've had weird stuff happen, and fortunately, they weren't at my house because I would never play it in my house. I'll play it outside of the house. I won't use it in my house. So, yeah. Woo! Alright, guys. So with that, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna pop off. I will put your guys's I'm gonna put the comments up here on so we can keep track of y'all. And then there we go. And then I'm gonna take this stupid banner off. So if Jen has the email, then we're good. And then I'm gonna put your guys's so I can see your comments over here. And I'm still fighting this how I'm going to put, now see, I said I wasn't gonna touch my microphone. Not gonna mute myself tonight, guys. But yeah, here we go. I'm gonna try this with my notes again. We're gonna see what happens. So I have a little story to start out and tell you first. I gotta make it a little bit bigger. I did wear my glasses tonight because I am tired. My eyeballs hurt from being digging in those rabbit holes for you guys. The last, well, gosh, all weekend I was playing down these dirty holes. So this is called. Oh, I gotta scroll back up. The Lady with the Ring. What is going on here? All right, hang on. Technical difficulties. All right. So in the early 1700s, in a town of Lurgan, Ireland, a woman named Marjorie McCall fell suddenly and violently ill. A fever took her quickly, the kind of illness that didn't leave much room for doubt, only urgency. And in those days, urgency meant haste. The dead were buried quickly, especially when sickness lingered in the air. Fear of contagion outweighed hesitation, and Marjorie was laid to rest. Oops. Uh-oh, my notes just went away. Oh my goodness. Come here, hang on. And Marjorie was laid to rest in Sandkill Graveyard almost as soon as her breathing had stopped, or it seemed to. She was buried wearing a gold ring, a small comfort, and a final kindness. That night, long after the mourners had gone home, others came to her grave, body snatchers. Men who worked in the darkness, not for grief, but for profit. Medical schools paid well, and graves were easier to access than prisons were to escape. They dug Marjorie up quickly and efficiently, but when they tried to pull the ring from her finger, it wouldn't budge. It was swollen and tight and unwilling to give. So one of them reached for a knife, and that's when Marjorie woke up. Whether it was a scream, a sudden movement, or the undeniable truth that this woman was very much alive, the effect was the same. The men ran, leaving behind an open grave and a woman who had just returned from her own funeral. Marjorie McCall climbed out of her grave. She walked home. She knocked on her front door. And when her husband opened it, he believed he was looking at a ghost. Some say he fainted on the spot. Others say terror alone nearly finished him. Marjorie, however, was not finished with life. She survived. She lived for years after, long enough to become a story whispered in graveyards, long enough to be buried again when death finally claimed her properly. Her gravestone reads, "Lived once, buried twice." Now, some versions of this story claim the shock of seeing his very much dead wife on the doorstep killed Marjorie's husband outright. Others say he survived and lived on, though I'm kind of thinking he probably was sleeping with the lights on and he probably decided to have a separate bedroom for Marjorie, at least until he died. For real died. So, and whether this story is absolutely true or there's parts to it that are true, because this is Ireland, they do like to spin a nice little tale, which are fun and entertaining. Gotta love it. Um, Marjorie indeed at least died. We know she died again because here is her and her husband's headstone. And this um scan what is it? Scankill Cemetery is right outside of Dublin. And this is her and you can tell this is a very old headstone. I believe this, story was said to take place about mid-1700s. So you can tell by the you can tell by the headstone that this has been a long time ago. And, of course, this down here at the bottom, Marjorie McCall, has, that's been added much later. And honestly, I don't even when I'm looking at this, I can't even see where her name was on there. Like, you can definitely see John's name up here at the top, and maybe the date of his death? I can't really it's hard to read. But here's another one for Marjorie, and you can tell on their grave this grave, there is a very big stone slate on top of it. So I think they wanted to make sure nobody was climbing out of this grave the second time. So that is the story of Marjorie McCall, and I have to thank Mia B for this one because she sent me this on Instagram, and I had to go look into it, and I was already looking into the Saved by the Bell, the safety coffins, the windows down into the graves. I was already looking into this, and when she sent this to me, I was like, "I think this is what we need to talk about next because something's telling me we need to discuss this." But Marjorie, whether the story is true, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be it's just a lot of talk with Marjorie, but it is a very cool story, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm gonna remove I gotta remove a couple things because 'cause I've got a lot of stuff that I wanna show you, and I keep hitting my face on this thing, so excuse me, but let me see what you guys are saying real quick. I hope you guys now this is not the scary part, so it's not the scary part yet. I did mention body snatchers, so essentially what they said, Marjorie died back in those days, right? They didn't have any way to tell if they couldn't hear your heart beat, if you didn't have a pulse, if your pulse was very weak, right? They couldn't tell. There was very few ways to actually test to see if someone was truly dead. And in those days, if you died of something like a fever or some sort of smallpox or anything that could potentially get everybody in your house sick, and everybody on your street, everybody in your village, you were gonna get buried pretty quickly. And that's what happened to Marjorie. Since they didn't know what took her, uh, they're gonna be on the safe side, so they got her into the ground almost immediately. And I love the so we're gonna talk about where Saved by the Bell came from. Well, there is some how do I wanna say it? There's some argument in history whether or not this is truly what it means, but I think it is. I think this I don't know where else it woulda come from. And hello, Tish. Hello, Mia B. And alright, let's see, make sure nobody else popped in here before. Um Oh, yeah, click the like. Be cool like me. Mia's cool. She sends me neat stuff that inspires me. So, you could thank her and, Mia B and Erica for all this cool stuff that I'm bringing you tonight. So, to continue, the fear beneath the legend. So, as unbelievable as Marjorie's story sounds, it whether it's true or not, whether it's more folklore than reality, it's based in some reality, correct? Yes. I wrote that down. My notes sometimes get a little funky, guys. So for centuries, people feared premature burial, and with good reason. Doctors didn't have a reliable way to confirm death. So fevers, comas, any illness that completely stilled your body, they just had no way to tell if you were really dead. So if your chest wasn't moving, they couldn't tell when your final breath was actually taken. So, coffins later on, for whatever reasons, I always this one was always a big question for me, like, why exactly were they checking coffins long after somebody had died? Um, Seems a little weird to me, but they were. And when they would open up these coffins later, they would see scratch marks on the inside of the lids. They would find fingernails that had been broken. Bodies would be twisted inside of the coffins and not very peacefully at rest. It would look like they had panicked. So, these stories circulated and people begged to be watched just a little bit longer. They didn't want to go directly into the ground. And this is where bells were attached to coffins and a lot of other things. There were flags. I'll show you a couple different ones. There's a window down to one gentleman had a window installed so you could see down into his grave, which that one's a little creepy. I'm not going to go look into those windows. Even if I could see something, I don't want to. But people were actually writing these warnings into their wills to make sure that their final request were being taken seriously. And it was just so not just was the fact that they were afraid of being buried alive, but there was another very grim reality, and that was body snatchers and grave robbers. So when I talk about grave robbers, I'm talking about like the two gentlemen that dug up Marjorie. They wanted to take her gold ring, and they would. This was a thing that happened. They would steal rings and expensive things that were um, on the deceased or buried with the deceased. But really, the body snatching is what really started to fuel a lot of these fears when it came to putting these elaborate cages and I'm gonna show you some of these. These things are crazy cool. There's not just I didn't just find one type, I found several. So, like I said, this it gets really crazy. Um, but the body snatching started mostly well, this is why it started. Medical schools were really starting to become a thing. They were expanding, there were more of them. And so as the schools expanded, they needed what? They needed cadavers. They needed bodies for their students to be able to learn on. They all the legal sources were pretty scarce. Donating your body to science wasn't quite a thing like it has been in recent years. And a lot of places, it was, criminals it was okay for any executed criminals to be used for medical research, but when those sources ran out, there was no other recourse. They had to have bodies, and unfortunately, the newly buried became prime targets. And graves started to be guarded. Families would stand watch, and these iron cages, also called mort safes, I'm gonna say that again because might not have come out very clear. Mort safes, so it's Mortsafes, or they're mort cages, which are the ones that look a little bit more like the ones we looked at, a couple streams ago. It looks like a cage, so I'm gonna pop those up. And these were put over the top of the graves to keep out the grave robbers. Now, if you look at this one, it looks like it would be pretty darn hard. So the coffin would actually I think the coffin fits into this one. I couldn't quite find out if this was the coffin or if there was a coffin placed in it. So I'm not sure how this one worked, but it looks pretty darn I mean, it'd be pretty hard to get into. And let me I gotta delete this one. And here is a oh, wait, here. I gotta show you guys this one because this one was just kinda cool. That safe that I just showed you, here's one, oh, here, let me take the comment off so you guys can see these I think most of the photos I have, you guys are gonna not like when I say this, but they're in Scotland and the UK. There's a lot of Scotland ones just because they seem to be the most that are still, in existence. There's some in the US, but most of them, when I looked for photos, right, this is where they all came from. It seems like a lot of them are in Scotland. So this one is one of the safes that was left over, and it's now used, as it says here, it's a trough for cattle. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe there was a coffin in it that they later moved somewhere else. Or, I don't know. I don't wanna know, but it's now something for cows to drink out of. And I'll pop this one back up. And this you can see this is sort of a combination. There's the cage around it, and then there is this big old stone on top of it, and there's several of them in this cemetery here. There's 4 of them in this photo. And they actually did have a device, um, like this little leverage guy here that lifted those big slabs to put on top of the graves, and that was meant to discourage grave robbers as well. Seems to me though, I don't know how well these worked. I don't like these don't look like they go down very deep. It looks like they could maybe dig around 'em, but, yeah, I but they were trying to protect their loved ones, trying to protect their dead. Here's a couple other examples. These were really this kinda remind me of Goldilocks and the 3 bears for some reason, right? You got papa, mama, obviously a child down here, so, um, and with that, they also had here's one, this is a guardhouse. So, cemeteries were starting to become very well guarded, almost more guarded than the prisons were. Alright, let me pop my notes back up here. I hate having to do this. I gotta figure an easy way out here. Go down. So, I talked about this the last time that there's really not a whole lot of reliable documentation proving that body snatchers actually ever exhumed anybody that was still alive. But there seems to be some credible near miss cases, some strong suspicions, and there actually was some court testimonies later on when they started to they were trying to pass legislation in the UK to stop this sort of thing from happening. So there was actual court testimonies, but did it actually happen? I mean, may have happened a few times, but probably not to the degree everyone thinks it did. But some reasons for there not being reliable documentation could be, right, you're doing something wrong. You're a body snatcher. You're not going to report that. You're not going to self snitch, right? And let's see, and also, they say the speed. So victims would likely have died from exposure or from the trauma of being buried alive pretty quickly. So they may have actually been dead very quickly into being buried alive. So even if they had been a body snatcher had come along, they may have already been dead by that time. And then there was also some social fear attached to this. Family and authorities often suppressed these stories because they wanted to avoid panic. Didn't seem like that worked out very well though because there was a lot of panic. So, if it did happen that grave robbers dug up actual living people, it either got covered up or it got dismissed. But even physicians later on acknowledged that looking at some of the remains inside the coffins said that ex- the movements of the corpse inside the coffin were inconsistent with decomposition. So, according to them, this suggested that the person may have revived after burial, but before they were discovered. So, Marjorie McCall, she she's sits up there as part legend, perhaps reality, but definitely born out of her legend was born out of all this fear, the greed of the day, right? The grave robbers coming to steal your gold, right? And this is a reminder too that the past, they weren't just afraid of the ghost. They were afraid of waking up in the dark and in a deep hole. So let's see what you guys are saying. What do you guys think so far? Not too bad. Not too bad, right? So far. I've got some other photos though, so, we'll wait. I gotta remove a couple things out of StreamYard because it only lets me put so many photos in here for you guys. And I've got I've got an air tube, or maybe not. Maybe it's not gonna let me put this one in here. Alright. It did, it let me do it. Alright. Sometimes StreamYard gets a little stupid, or maybe it's just me. But so before we can assume that every twisted limb or damaged coffin tells a story that there was panic, that somebody was buried alive, there's something important to understand. And I sort of touched on this a little bit when in the stream where we were talking about the cages over the graves. So bodies don't stay still after death. They don't stay completely at rest inside their coffins. And if you don't like this part, this might be a part, Stevie, if you're listening, you might want to put your earmuffs on. Yeah, traveling fools, didn't have time to put my slideshow together. So this is what we got tonight, unfortunately. But typically that's how I do it. And I wish I had done it this way tonight because yeah, now I'm sitting here fiddling around deleting and uploading, but Um, part 2 will be better. I promise. So, bodies don't stay still after death, so even if someone has died peacefully, their body is gonna continue to change, and sometimes the way they look when you view them is not how they're going to be later on if, say, you were to remove them, like, exhume them. So, one of the biggest factors is rigor mortis. Morgan ugh, I got really tongue tied on that. Let me get One of the biggest factors is rigor mortis, and so the muscles stiffen after death, and if the body is moved before that process finishes, so these people are burying their bodies very quickly, right? It can lock into unnatural positions, and it can look deliberate when it's pulled up, and I did my funny little, right? Like, it can look like somebody is, like, panicked in the grave, right? I don't wanna get too I gross everybody out with um, my dead face, but there's also decomposition that happens, so as bacteria breaks down the bodies, gases build up, enclosed spaces like coffins. It's gonna be a little gross, guys, so I warn you. The pressure is gonna cause bloating, shifting, and movement inside the coffin. The arms can move outward, the jaw can fall open, and even though this body was laid very carefully in the coffin, later it can look very much disturbed. And this doesn't have to mean that the person was buried alive, it's just natural decomposition. And then also, over time, ligaments and tendons loosen, joints lose their support, limbs collapse inward and onward on their own. So, depending on how the arms were placed on the deceased, it may look very different if they go and exhume the person, say, like months or years later. And also, the graves themselves were not very stable environments, so soil shifts, the coffins, they bow or they collapse. Things like moisture, freezing, and pressure changing underground, all of that is gonna make a difference. So, what looks like movement is just gravity and, again, decomposition, just the grave breaking down over time. And to the fingernails. So, even damaged fingernails, and this is cited very often, that this is proof of scratching. But this is also a part of normal decomposition too. Sometimes it can be handling during burial or even just pressure inside the coffin can make changes to the fingernails themselves. And once again, it doesn't mean that premature burial ever happened, but it did, but not as often as we think it did. So many of the physical signs once used as proof were later understood to have ordinary biological explanations, and that's what made the fear so powerful. The signs weren't always clear. The lines between death and life weren't always easy to see, and the uncertainty, as we've learned in so many other stories we've talked about, uncertainty fueled the imagination, right? Everybody just they lose their crap. Easiest way to say it. These people were just absolutely haunted by the fact that they were gonna wake up in the ground, and not only did they die once, they were gonna die again, and this time it was gonna be even more terrifying. Okay, so what do you guys think so far? Not too bad, right? Nobody oh, Mia, I put Mia to sleep. I'm sorry, Mia. Oh, I know, guys. This one's a little but it's interesting at least, right? Like, it's And hello, kittens. Kittens in crime. I still love that. I think Tansy is, if there ever was a kitten who's gonna commit crimes, it's gonna be her. She is out, which does not mean it's bad for me. Alright. So buried alive, before let's see. Doop, boop, boop. I'm gonna tell you guys about since I keep talking about Scotland all the time, I think I'm gonna skip over one part here. I'm gonna talk about New York City, and this is a fun story or crazy. Let's say it's crazy. Yeah, it's a crazy story. Alright, let me pop my notes back up here. So, we're gonna go back to New York City. It's 1788. So if we wanna put this in context, this is not very long after the Revolutionary War. So it's a long time ago, guys. And there was a full-blown riot, and it happened against the doctors and the medical school. And it wasn't because medicine failed, but it was because medicine was caught stealing the dead. And at this time, like I said, doctors desperately needed bodies to learn anatomy. And the at the time, the law only allowed them to dissect executed criminals, and there just weren't enough of those. So medical students and physicians had to turn to the grave robbers. And these gentlemen, they targeted fresh graves. So they went to potter's fields, they went to poor family cemeteries, and they went to the black burial grounds. And this is what this all kinda tied into that buried alive, what fueled that nightmare, because people also were they were being buried too soon, and they feared being waking up underground, suffocating in a coffin, but they also now feared that they were gonna get dug up, and then they were gonna be on a table as a science experiment. So, imagine already being afraid of just being buried alive and waking up underground. Now they've got a whole whole 'nother aspect to be terrified of. So, what if you weren't really dead? And these grave robbers took you and sold you to the medical school and you weren't dead. What happened? Um, did they I mean, there's no of course, the medical school isn't gonna make note of that, right? I couldn't find any cases where they ever actually said, um, that it happened, but I would probably guess if it had happened, they probably weren't gonna disclose that. But so if you think about dissection, we're talking humans. It wasn't, they didn't think of it as disrespectful, but many did believe that it damned the soul because it prevented resurrection and it trapped that person forever in eternal unrest. So they believed that these could cause ghosts. These people weren't gonna be able to rest eternally because they had no grave, they were just gonna be taken apart and not given proper burials. So, the riot started when some children were out playing, and they were out in front of the medical one of the medical buildings, and they saw some of these medical students dissecting a body. And one of the medical students started the kids were being obnoxious, as children are, and he took one of the severed arms of the body that he was dissecting, and he waved it out the window and he yelled at one of the children and said, "This belongs to your dead mother." And whether that really was the child's mother's arm or not, by nightfall, the whole city was freaking out, for lack of a better phrase. So, everyone started thinking, "Okay, these doctors they're stealing our bodies. They're our bodies. They're stealing our dead. They're cutting them up, and maybe, just maybe, they're dissecting people who weren't really completely dead." So, a mob stormed the New York hospital. They destroyed specimens and they hunted these doctors and medical students through the streets. They had to call the militia in. People died. The doctors were put in jail, not for a punishment, but that's how they were going to protect them. And this riot forced the medical world to confront something pretty real, that the fear of being alive wasn't just a superstition. And because without death certificates, without modern medicine, the line between dead and living was pretty thin. And sometimes that line would end up on the anatomy table instead of in a grave. So when we talk about being buried alive, for the people in the 18th century, the grave wasn't always the end. Now they thought, crap, I could end up as a medical experiment. So, safety coffins, I'm going to move on to that since we already talked about all the cages that they put over the graves. Um, what do you guys think so far? I haven't lost anybody. Nobody's been sick or ill or anything yet, right? Um, and yes, this is a follow-up. Some of this is, but I did get a lot more information, Erica, than I had before. Like I've learned bits and pieces of this throughout, like, but I've never taken a deep dive on this topic. Like I've read certain things. I knew about the riot in New York, where I read that, or I mean, I read a lot of weird stuff, so that's probably where I learned it. At something popped up somewhere along the line that I read, and that stuck in my head. But um, the New York riot really did happen. Whether the arm being waved out the window at the children was real, there seems to be maybe it did, maybe it didn't happen, but um the truth is that child did go home and tell his father what happened, and this child, oddly enough, his mother had passed away just a few days earlier, or like a week earlier. This is the story that I was told, so, like I said, it's a story. I don't know if this was ever validated, but the father went, grabbed a shovel, immediately went to the cemetery where they had buried his wife and the kid's mother, and he dug up the grave and found that her coffin was empty. So whether that's true or not, I mean, it sounds believable, and you could see how it could freak some people out, and that could definitely turn you that could fuel some that could fuel a crazy riot, especially in New York. I mean, things haven't changed, right? You wake up and realize you're the modern Prometheus. Yes. And Jen says she's read about it too. I almost wanna say, I think like, there was some movie or something once too that kinda, like, touched on the riots, or yeah, I can't remember exactly where it was that, and I mean, I've heard about the whole buried alive from, and I think, like, Erica, we were talking about it on the stream that night, like, we just kinda wrapped up the stream with talking about it, and it I think it was more like, did it probably happen a few times? Yes, but once you start like, "Oh, I know somebody who said this," and then they tell their neighbor, and then their neighbor tells somebody, because it's not like they had TVs, and most of them probably didn't have access to books or a lot of I mean, these were just hardworking people, most of them, right? So, what else did they have to do? They're working out in the fields, and they're telling each other stories, and like I said, the Irish and even the Scottish, that like, they love to tell their stories. So, you can see how these things probably just got built up over time, and that's the fascinating part for me. I just love how, it's just continued to build, and it's still something that people we still believe. 2, 300 years later, we're still believing that people were buried alive. But so to go on, we're gonna talk about the safety coffins. I don't maybe I am gonna get through a lot of this tonight, you guys. Um, so the safety coffins, this was an exit plan for the dead. So by the late 1700s and into the 1800s, the fear of the premature burial, like, it exploded. It was crazy. Paranoia and misdiagnosis was so common that it just kept fueling the paranoia. Just it happened. Doctors, they just medical science was relatively new. They didn't have a whole lot of equipment to fall back on. So at the time, they relied on pulse. They would use mirrors to see if people were breathing. And sometimes they just sort of waited to see if the body started to smell. Like, was it dead enough? But comas, catalepsy, cholera, hypothermia, epilepsy, all of these and many, many other things could mimic death where the people were so still, such shallow breathing, you wouldn't know that they were still alive. So, this led into these designer coffins, and the first one I'm gonna talk about is the Bell system, and that is not well, this is the flag. Sorta like the Bell system. Let me get my image for the bell. Now there's not too many of these still left, but we do have 2 here in the US, which one is in Savannah, of all places, which we've talked about Savannah, because right, that's on our field trip that we're all gonna take, and now I can't find where's the photo of it? Oh, I'm gonna be upset if it's not here. Uh, this is not it. This is not it. What happened to it? Alright, I'm gonna pop this one up here because this is and then I'm going to look for my other one, so I'll let you guys have a peek at this. Uh, this is an example of one of the bells, but I have better photos somewhere here. Don't know where they went to now. Oh, here it is. So we do have 2 still in existence in this country. One is in Ohio, and this one is in Savannah. Let me pull it up. Or not. Where are ya? I don't know what's going on with my computer, why, like, my downloads just aren't they're not showing up in the proper order. Either that or it's just not downloading. Yeah, I don't think they're downloading. Damn it. Alright, bear with me here, guys. I'll tell you where they are, and if I can't get them to download tonight, I'll bring them back tomorrow, and I'll show you some more pictures tomorrow. I'll put them in a Google slideshow by then. I'm gonna go down here 'cause my they're at the end of my notes. So, cemeteries with grave bells, Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia, and this is our uber haunted cemetery in Savannah. And this bell is on the grave of Charles F. Mills, and it's a bronze grave bell atop a pipe. And this is the last fully intact system in the cemetery. And there's also another one that is in Evergreen Cemetery, and that's in New Haven, Vermont. And this is the grave of Dr. Timothy Clark Smith. And he also has a glass viewing window and the bell mechanism, which I do have the viewing window. Boop, if it wants to show up. Maybe not. Come up. There it is. It's coming. Let it go. There it is. So, this is the little window. So, now they say you can't really see anything that's down in the grave any longer because of condensation has built up in there, and of course, like, it's just been a really long time. So, you can't really see anything. I'm not looking in it anyway, just in case. I don't know. I get a little creeped out by things like that. I love spooky, creepy stuff, but this is, I don't yeah, with my luck, there's gonna be somebody looking back at me, and I'm not there for that. But this grave does attract a lot of attention. I'm telling you, you can there's videos all over. All you have to do is, Google his grave, and so many videos pop up. So, I guess now I'm gonna have to go there at some point because so many of them. I wanna play I wanna play my videos, so I don't wanna keep playing all of these other ones, but, like I said, it's in New Haven. There's also a bell in the viewing window, and yes, and Savannah is we've already discussed it. As a channel, we're all taking a big field trip to Savannah, for the ghosts, for the cemetery, and there's supposed to be a lot of really good breweries too, so I think it's a triple win for me. I'm all for it, but yeah, I'm excited. I It's gotta get on the books, we've gotta do it. That and St. Augustine, I think, is what we were all talking about going, and pop my notes back up. Is it gonna let me download that picture yet? So, I guess I'll pop this one back up here. Yeah, here we go. So, this mechanism there's a little ball attached to it, so I guess if the person wakes up, they can squeeze this little ball, and this is a little air shaft that's going up from him up to the little box, and then this little flag will pop up. And it's the same concept for the bell. If there was a bell sitting on top, the air would make the bell ring. And now in other situations, there would be a long tube just like this, and there's a string or a cord that would go down the tube. And if the dead woke up, the idea is that their finger where the cord was, attached to, that would make the bell ring. Guess what else makes the bell ring? Wind through the cemetery will make the bell ring. So, that's where I'm gonna go next. Let's see. Mia B says they have a Culver's in St. Augustine. Yeah, I'm only going to states with a Culver's, Mia. I just went to Culver's last week. Oh gosh, I love Culver's. Let's see, where are we now? Gotta go back up to my safety coffins. Doop, doop, doop. All right. So here we go. The bell system. So the most famous safety coffin designed. This was the string tied to either a person's wrist, to their finger, or to a toe. The string ran through a tube up to the surface and it was attached to a bell. And if the person woke up underground, they could move and the bell would ring. Hence the phrase saved by the bell. And another phrase, dead ringer, also may be linked to this, but some historians debate that. And other designs along the same line, as you can see in this photo, flags that popped up, the viewing windows, some coffins came with ladders inside them, which seems really optimistic to me, thinking that you're gonna wake up and I guess you're gonna dig yourself out? I don't know. And in some graveyards, they had night watches, which wanna guess which phrase that they think probably comes from these graveyard night watches? Graveyard shift. But again, history, this is up for debate, but I like it. I think it works. So this would be somebody that was paid to sit up in the cemetery overnight, and they would have, like, the little guardhouse. I think I There we go, like this one. This one is in the UK, somewhere in the UK. I had it wrote down here, and now I don't. But they erected these small little guardhouses for, and sometimes it wasn't just the guards either, just guards paid to do it. Sometimes family members would sit up and watch over the graves. And you can imagine if it's winter, it's gonna get cold, and if it rains, you're gonna get wet, so that's what led to the construction of uh, these guardhouses. It was a way of you could sit in them and keep nice and dry while you watched over your dead. So, what goes on in a cemetery at night? You probably are gonna get some wind, right? And when you get the wind, you get a bell ringing. And imagine if you're sitting there and you're the guy on guard. You're the night shift, you're the graveyard shift, and you hear the little tinkle, which I think I got made fun of calling it a tinkle of a bell before, but I'm still gonna call it a tinkle. You hear the ringing of the bell, and you're sitting there, and you're thinking, "I'm just watching the dead, nothing's gonna happen," right? And then you hear that damn bell ringing. What what do you do, right? Because it did happen, and it happened enough, to be where it was well documented, at least this part was. So, what could cause this? So you could get the wind moving through the cemetery, the wind would, ring the bells, but also decomposition inside the grave, which we just talked about. So, imagine, right, they tie it to a finger, so imagine your finger, right, you got rigor mortis when they put you in there, right? And your finger's stiff. And they tie that little string around there, right? And your finger's like this, but then the rigor mortis, right? Like your finger starts to relax. So what happens? Your finger is starting to relax, and ding, 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 the little bell starts to ring. Doesn't mean the person inside the grave is still alive, but it rings. And then sometimes if the coffin, say it shifts in the soil, you got a finger, you got a string tied around something in that coffin, that's gonna cause the bell to ring too. And then sometimes there's just animals in the cemetery. You've got little critters that run around, something hits the bell and it rings. And just because the bell ring doesn't mean somebody's alive. But either way, whether you thought it was an accident or not, they still had to go dig up this grave to make sure that the person in it was not alive, and this did happen. So, um, hang on here. I gotta scroll down a little bit because I went out of order. Alright. What to do. Okay, here we go. So the first safety coffin, the first documented safety coffin was 1792, and this was Duke Ferdinand of Brunswick, and that's Germany. And the Duke was absolutely terrified of premature burial, and so he ordered a coffin to be built with an inspection window, a lockable lid, and an air tube. And his will had instructions that his tomb was to be opened periodically to check to see if he was alive. So he was buried in this coffin in 1792, and this is the, like I said, earliest recorded example of a coffin specifically designed to prevent a live burial. Now, the first Bell safety coffin was 1822, and it was Johann Gottfried Tauberger. I'm hoping I said that right. He patented in the year 1822 in Germany. And this is the design that most people, when you think of the bell system, this is what most people think of it as. The string is tied to the corpse's hand, feet, head, and the string connected to the bell. If the person moved, the bell rang. So, of course, I'm going to look. I want to know, well, did anybody ever, like, did the bell ever go off? And did they ever dig anybody up that was actually alive? So, the grave bells, the safety coffins, all of those were absolutely real. There were patents on them, they were sold, they were installed, especially the late 1700s and up until about the mid 1800s. And this is when the fear of premature burial was probably the most widespread. And this is called taphophobia, by the way, guys. Is That's the fear of premature burial. So, there's no confirmed medical or legal records that exist that prove a person was ever rescued because a grave bell rang. Many supposed rescues trace back to newspaper stories, hearsay or later retellings with no primary sources. So, Victorian newspapers were notorious for sensationalism. They, especially if it had anything to do with death, and what was the most exciting news story probably of that time was being buried alive and then having a bell save someone. So, can the newspapers be trusted? Probably not a very reliable source. But people did believe that they could work, and that's all that really mattered to them. And several things, like I said before, things like people truly believed, right, that um when re they noticed, okay, I'm sorry, I gotta backtrack. Several things fed the legend, and we've talked about this one. The scratched coffins, and the scratched lids on the coffins, which occasionally when people were, exhumed to be reburied, if they were going to move them to a new location, they would notice the scratch marks on the inside of the coffins. But often this could also be related to decomposition or the coffin collapse, not necessarily somebody on the inside clawing. And let's see. Bum, bum. But I did have so what is documented, so doctors and coroners in the 18th and 19th century, they did misdiagnose goodness, misdiagnose death often. Like we said, coma, hypothermia, illness, all of these incidents could have led to premature burial. And because of this fear, I think I just repeated that. Um, oh, here we go. Okay, because of this fear, the inventions like grave bells, air tubes, flags, and viewing windows, like I said, they were hugely popular, even though there wasn't any proof that they worked. So, The grim irony was, though, that most of these safety coffins had some fatal flaws, that if someone actually did wake up underground, they likely would have suffocated long before help ever arrived, even if they did ring the bell. So, if, say, like, a night watchman wasn't present, or maybe he heard the bell and just chose to ignore it, which, I mean, it could have happened. Maybe he stepped away and didn't hear the bell ringing. And just the fact with how many times did they probably dig people up because a bell would ring, and you can what happens, right? Like the boy who cried wolf sort of scenario, right? Maybe they've dug up just too many people after so many times. They just are like, okay, this is probably not real either. And maybe they started to ignore these things. So even if somebody did wake up underground, wake up in their coffin, didn't mean that rescue was gonna happen. But grave bells still kind of promise the hope that um it promised some hope because medicine couldn't. And they may never have saved a life, but they did reveal exactly how terrified people were of being declared dead too soon. So let's see. I gotta go to my next one. So what are we saying so far up here? Oh, Darlene, I am not posting that one right here. But I know what you want to tie it to. And yeah, we're that's we could talk about those things in another episode. And Saint Augustine, yeah, that's definitely on the list for where we wanna go ghost hunting, is St. Augustine, especially that lighthouse. Oh my gosh. I don't know how many times I've seen that on ghost hunting shows. It's beautiful too. I like lighthouses. And let's see, another big issue, yeah, fluids escaping body, all these things make a difference, right? Like, what your body they're gonna you're not gonna look exactly like that if they exhume you, and I think I've told you yeah, I told you guys my story where I, accidentally got to watch, an exhumation in process where they actually opened up the coffin, and God, I would or it was a casket. One of those big metal caskets that are supposed to be airtight. Oh my god. I on one hand, I was like it was really cool to see it and watch it, and then on the other hand, I was like, "Ugh, I wish I hadn't." Fortunately, it wasn't somebody I knew, so it didn't traumatize me, but I don't know how they can do it. That I was far like, I couldn't see, like, really close because I was back in the cemetery a little bit, and they had the police had up, like, like those little tents, right, that they put up around like, they're supposed to put up around, like, a little crime scene or whatever to keep the public and the media from seeing. But one side was completely open, and I was on the other side of the cemetery, and I was just kinda, like, looking over, being a nosy Rosie, and yeah, and I was just like, "Okay, they're at some point, they're gonna see me over here and be like, 'Get out,' and I'm like, 'Well, I'm just gonna stand here until they tell me to go.'" And so I'm just standing there and, like, I nobody's even looking at me standing off behind, right? And they open up this casket, and, um, apparently water had got into the vault because he did come out of one of those, the big vaults that they put your casket into, and they open up the casket, and all this stuff just drains out of it. I'll leave it at that. And I'm not very good at judging distance. I was a good bit away, close enough to tell it was a person in there, but not close enough to, like, make out features. But I was close enough to smell. I'll never forget it. So, I can't, imagine back I mean, and this gentleman had been embalmed, um, as far as I know, he had been embalmed, so, can you imagine? Well, I don't know. I guess if they would have dug somebody up back then, like, what did we 10 years it takes for, just if you were buried in the ground in a metal or not a metal, wooden box, 10 years and you're pretty much all decomposed and there's just bits of bits of you and bits of your coffin or casket left, right? Like the old style coffins and caskets, not the ones now that they are supposedly airtight. Those are I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I don't want one of those. I wanna go as quick I wanna decompose as quickly as possible, but also that's why I'm doing cremation because I don't want anybody coming and snatching me after the fact. So, it's a good reason for that, but they didn't have that back in these days either. I'm sure if it was available, more people probably would have taken advantage of it, but I'm sure they would have still been afraid of waking up inside of a kiln or something, right, too, so that would have probably fueled some more, even bigger fears in them, and yeah, there's you don't forget that smell, but yeah, thinking of that now, like, back then, they wouldn't have embalmed people because, let's see, embalming really started during the Civil War, so 61 to 65, and it was with what did they embalm with it? Arsenic. I think it was, like, a combination of arsenic and some other, I think it was primarily arsenic that they embalmed with. Formaldehyde came along later, like, I wanna say 1890-ish. I might be off a little bit there, but pretty darn close. Like, towards the later part of the 1800s was when formaldehyde came into use. But, like, when Lincoln again, something else we've talked about on stream, when Lincoln did his final, funeral tour on the train, he was embalmed multiple times because it took 2 weeks for him to do his whole progress, the whole funeral progress. Excuse me. And he was embalmed several times, even so much so, like, when his grave was actually they tried to steal his corpse once. And now he's buried under, like, concrete, like, covered over the top of him, so he will never be disturbed again. But when they did, return his body to the grave, they said he looked almost exactly the same as he did when he went in. And it had been I don't know how long it had been, maybe, like, 10 years or something, so, just because he had been embalmed so many times, like, they just kept administrating more of it. Um I know that they also said people who woke up in a coffin in a funeral home. I've heard of them waking up in nowadays, right? Like, and just recently, like in the last year, there was a woman who woke up. They picked her up from the nursing home and they were taking her to the funeral home, and she woke up inside the van or the hearse, whatever it was conveying her to the funeral home, and she woke up inside the bag, the body bag, and I'm sure that caused some excitement then, but, so it still happens it probably happened I don't know, and I've there was another and I think she ended up passing away not too like, for real, like, not too long after that, but still, yeah, you could see how people like that one lady, right? Like, somebody reads the paper and sees that or watches the news, and now they're like, "Oh my god, everybody's alive," right? But so, yeah, you can see how, like, one story like that is gonna fuel all this crazy stuff, right? And it's not I mean, I'm sure it did happen, but probably not to the degree they want us to I was trying to look for an exact number of how many people they thought had been, buried alive, and they said it could have been thousands or maybe just hundreds. And that's over like 100, like a pretty good span, like 300 years. And it could have been hundreds of people, it could have been thousands of people. There's really no way to tell if, since right, like, a lot of times like I said before, how are they gonna know unless right, like, somebody did come along and tried to snatch their body up, and, or you exhumed them for whatever reason to, I don't know, relocate their grave or whatever, and you notice some things. I could see how you would think that, you open up the lid and grandma's not quite in the position, like, in a very resting position, right? I could see how this would happen. So, it's not like I think they're crazy, uh, because this is a time, right? Medical science is pretty darn new. They still believed in witches, right? We just talked about poor Joan White from Cornwall, who, because she's a little strange and she was unruly, she was a witch. And that she died in 1815. So to say that people were still superstitious and still believed in things because they couldn't explain it. I mean, we know that's true. They couldn't explain being buried alive either, but they sure the hell were gonna try to figure out a way not to have it happen. So this also led to, right, wakes, sitting up with the dead. Uh, there's a song. Is it Ray? Do you guys know who Ray Stevens is? Or am I the only one with weird parents that listen to Ray Stevens? But there's a song he has about sitting up, and I think it's called "Sitting Up with the Dead." And, like, they've got Uncle Charlie or whatever he is, like, he's laid out on the, like, for his viewing, right? And he's laid out, and he was, they had to strap him down because he was in rigor, full rigor, and one of the straps or something that was holding him down broke, and he sat straight up because that's the position he had passed away in, was like a sitting position, and he sits up and everybody goes bonkers because, "Oh my god, he's alive." But yeah, it's a funny song, I should try to find it. I haven't listened to it since I was a kid, but I remember thinking about that, like, going to, my step-grandmother's funeral, and I was, like, sitting there like, I swear to God, if she sits up in that coffin, I'm climbing over the top of everybody here, and I'm getting the hell out. Yeah, that's crazy stuff. And so, yeah, so Megan, good. I like that I popped your question up here, and I like that you asked this question. You'd think that they would give them temporary grace. Well, guess what? They did. Um, they had what they called, so we have the mort safes. God, why is that so hard to say? Mort safes, right? That funky little, did I already put, I might have already put that one away. Well, here, I'll pop this one back up. That looked like this, but it would have had a lid on it, right? Like that's a mort safe. And then they had the mort cages, but they also had a mort house. I know, this is a lot. They had a lot of mort stuff. So they designed these mort houses. There's there's a good amount of them still in Scotland. Sorry, guys, I know you're probably getting tired of hearing about Scotland. I haven't been to these yet. I fully intend on going to see them the next time I go now, though, because these are really cool. So they called them mort houses, and think of, um, kinda like our modern day morgues, if you want. Yeah. So there would be spaces where you could put in the coffins, and I have to use my hands when I do this stuff, so, like, they had rollers on some of them so that they could just roll the coffin in, and they had, right? Like, they had multiple places where you could put more than just 1 or 2 in there, like, you could some of them you could had shelves, you could put, like, 6, 8 in there, and the idea was that they could stay inside these mort houses until pretty much, like, when they started to stink, you knew for sure they were they were deceased, and you also knew great the medical students, they didn't want them anymore. Once they were gross, they were no longer valuable to medical students, and they weren't yeah, they don't want them decomposing. They wanted this is rough, guys. It could be rough. If it is, earmuffs for just a minute, but yeah, they didn't want decomposing, deceased people on their tables. They wanted very fresh freshly dead people, because that's right, they still want to be able to do their experiments, do their dissecting, and learn, because that's why they're doing this, right? They want to learn, uh, and they need the fresh. So, after 3, 4 days, those people were no longer valuable, and these grave robbers would literally sit and watch these cemeteries and the graveyards, and they would wait till the funeral parties dispersed, the families would go home, here's this fresh grave. Almost immediately, they would dig them up. Sometimes, they didn't even wait for it to get completely dark, but if they were smart, they would wait. I've got a few stories of a there's Burke and Hare from Scotland. I'm gonna tell you their story, that's gonna be tomorrow. That's gonna be my little teaser for tomorrow, and then we're also gonna talk about, since I can't leave the United States out, because body snatching didn't just happen in the UK, we know it happened here in the US as well. So, I'm gonna talk about a gentleman named Viggo Jansen, and he is called the Erectionist, and right, res erection oh my god, I really stuck my foot in that one. The Resurrectionist, I am so editing that out. Yeah, I'm sorry, you can all laugh at me, that's a good one. So he was called the Resurrectionist, and he operated around Washington, DC back in the day. So I'm gonna tell you their stories. The Burke and Hare one is I think everybody's probably heard about them. They were some pretty notorious grave robbers. So they're if you haven't heard about them, be prepared. I'm going to show you how they I think that's yeah, I think we could just talk about why don't we finish up with just talking about the mort cages and these topic, and then tomorrow we'll talk about Burke and Hare, we'll talk about Vigo, and they did have a special way that they would extract the deceased from the grave. So I have like a representation of that. It's not an actual photo, but it is a representation from a museum. So it's not gory, but just so you know, that's coming tomorrow, and I will give you guys a trigger warning beforehand so that if you are worried about seeing that, it's not that it's not that bad, but some people might, what I think is not that bad might gross other people out. So, I'm gonna leave those guys for tomorrow, since that seems like a I think that could be our whole 2-hour stream there, because there'll be a lot of questions on, Burke and Hare for sure, and there's also and Vigo, because what a character that guy was. Um, yeah, he didn't even care that he got caught. He would just wait for the funeral to end and boop, pop right into the cemetery and just start going at it, and it's just like, "What the" not not very smart. Like holding cell, like yeah. So they did have like yeah, the mort houses were like a hort and then some places too, this was pretty common like in the colder states, right? They would have those um I'm trying to think like the little crypts where they would like if it was too cold to dig in the ground. So I need to look that up. I didn't really look that up. Like what happened if it was too cold to bury people? Like what how did they uh when did the body snatchers if that made any difference? Like did they maybe they didn't steal them? These are just weird things I think about. Darlene had to give you a giggle. Yeah, with the pen. Darlene and her pen jokes. And Erica said, "Yeah, if I remember right, that's why it became tradition to wait 3 days before burying and having a wake." So the wake was, made to, like, make it a party, right? Like, you fed, especially Irish wakes, right? You drank, you ate, you entertained, you'd have music and all of that while your deceased person is laying there. And ugh, this is gonna drive me bonkers till I get used to it. So that's where, yeah, the 3 days, and by then 3 days would go by. Nobody like they wouldn't think that the medical schools would want them any longer, and then that just stayed the tradition was the 3 days, and gosh, even it's even longer. In some instances now, I know when my mom passed away, it was almost a week before, like, we had her service and everything, so yeah, but, yeah, that 3 days, that and the wake, all of that came out of all of this from the body snatching, and also to make sure, right, like, if you started to smell them by day 3, but I would think once they started embalming people as well, that should have been a pretty good indicator once you started to I gotta look that up. I gotta make a note of that too for modern embalming though, because I'm not exactly sure how they I don't want to get too into the embalming, but it is kind of fascinating. I need to find somebody who knows a lot more about that. I'm not sure um exactly how they did it back then. I know it was I know how they I know how they do it now, but I'm interested in how actually did that like in the like in Lincoln's situation. I know they kept putting arsenic on him, like on his face and his skin, but I don't know how else they managed to preserve him as they did. That was like 2 weeks he was going around, right? Like on his funeral tour, for lack of a procession, funeral procession. That sounds better. Um, and yeah, it does depend on the religion too. Is it it, for the Jewish religion, don't they isn't it like by sundown the next day or something like that that they're if anybody knows, shout out cuz I'm not 100% sure how that worked. Um Darlene, yeah, I think it was Mercury. I think there was which probably was I wonder if and that's also what led to funeral homes as well, is when they started to do embalming. Like during the Civil War, right? They had so many men that were dying far away from their homes. And if family members did want to um, have their bodies returned so that they could bury them at home, then they had to figure out something to do for them because otherwise it could take days to weeks for them to like if the family lived up here in Michigan and they died in a battlefield in Georgia, it's going to take a long time to get back home. So But yeah, that's where and then funeral homes and just all of that just came out of this. So it's it's kind of crazy. Yeah, and body bags. Ugh, like waking up. That's what my fear would be. I'd be more worried about um yeah, waking up in a one of those bags, but ugh, yeah. And I love oh good, Mia. At least somebody knows about Ray Stevens. The streak. Yes. See, okay. I don't feel I don't feel so alone then. Yeah. I grew up listening to Ray Stevens. My stepdad looks a lot like him. Like a lot like him. He doesn't sing like him though, but yeah. And I remember the squirrel one too. Like the squirrel got down somebody's pant yeah, I can't remember. I'll have to go back and listen to some of them, but yeah, listen to the Sitting Up with the Dead one. That one was pretty funny because, like, I just remember watching the video and everybody, like, here's uncle what's or grandpa or whoever he was supposed to be sits up, right? Like, right in the middle of them sitting up with him, and he sits up and everybody's like it's kinda funny, yeah. Nobody had a sense of hu Ray Stevens is funny as hell. I fully believe that changeling children were really just autistic or ADHD. There could be a lot of, explanations for the changeling. I mean, depends on how far back you wanna go too, right? Kittens and Crime with, go back to the 1600s, right? Like, they believed fairies would come in and take their children and leave a fairy child but because something would just be wrong with the baby, with the infant, like, failure to thrive, like, that still even happens nowadays, but, to people then, that was, the fairies took their actual baby and l left them with the fairy child, right? And they would actually take that baby and go leave it where they thought the fairies were in hopes that they would take their baby back and they would get their child back. So, I think you had a lot of children that were probably something was they were ill, they had some sort of yeah, had some sort of illness. They could have had, I mean, autism isn't something new, and there could have been any number of reasons, right? Like, why they suddenly changed and they weren't the same kid anymore. Well, shit happens. We don't stay the same from the time we're little infants and we grow up and then you're thinking like maybe some of these parents didn't probably spend a whole lot of time with their kids either to like know how they how they really were. But just some of the things they just didn't know. And it's hard for me, like I sit and think like, oh my God, these people are crazy, but they didn't know anything else. Yeah. Everything is beautiful. Yes, that is one of his normal songs. The rest of them are, It's Me Again, Margaret. Something about chicken and Cool Whip. I somebody help me out. Somebody's gotta know that one, right? And Darlene says, "I know I've heard of him, and that's why they had a wake at the home." Yeah. And I was trying to look up too, I wanted to know, like, with the sitting up with the dead, because I think that was more of a Southern tradition, right, too? Like, so they sit up with the dead? Um, so I don't know if that because people if they didn't have funeral homes, right, they would have had their funerals in their homes. I know our old house had multiple, um, funerals, that probably took place in the house before there was an actual funeral home in town. So, just imagine I don't know, not for me. I love my mom, but I don't wanna sit up with anybody, like, nah, yeah. It's alright. The Irish gave the Scottish the bagpipes as a joke, and they still haven't got it. Are you making fun of the Scottish? I love bagpipes. It was funny the night that I played the bagpipes, my dogs were barking and was it somebody else was it Clips? I think her dogs were barking too. So I guess, yeah, the dogs don't like bagpipes. I think they're soothing. They're only fun for a jig. Otherwise, yeah, I don't Darlene says, yeah, they used to put them in I think my asthma's a little worked up today. They used to put them in one for the during the warmer months. See, I'm wondering if, I'm gonna look that up for tomorrow. Um, See, all these things I start to think of this is why when I go down these rabbit holes, guys, you're gonna have to put a bell on my finger because to know that I'm still alive when I go down them. I'll get trapped down there. I kept asking, like, did anybody ever get pulled out of the grave by, like, the bell or the flag, or did somebody look down the little tube and grandpa's waving at 'em? Um, and my thought was always like, well, if they put them in the they thought they were dead, they probably weren't too far off from being dead already anyway, right? But then you hear Marjorie's story. She went on to live the rest of a normal life, whatever that was back in the 1700s. She probably made it to 50. So, did yeah, I just I ask these questions and I know everybody's you guys get it, but yeah, I ask people here at home and my friend and they're just like, "I why are you asking me these things?" But I wanna know if, body snatching was a thing during the winter months. Because I know in Edinburgh, it was a huge thing because that's where Burke and Hare were. You'll learn that tomorrow, or if you already know who they are, you'll have heard about them because the medical school there in Edinburgh, they bought, bodies for their medical studies. It gets cold there, so I'm curious, like, how that happened, so I'm gonna look that up for you guys, and yeah, I knew somebody was gonna I knew that Erectionist was not gonna Oh, can I tell you guys about, so when I was in vet tech school, um, I had to give a report on bloat in cows. I know, fun topic, and all of our topics were snoozers, right? Bloat and cows, like, how exciting is that? It's not exciting at all. So, one of the things that can cause bloat is vagal stimulation. So, if you guys remember, Baby Bush when he was in the White House, he, swallowed that pretzel wrong and he passed out because he hit his what is it, the vagus is it the vagus or vagal nerve? Whatever that is back there, right at the back of your throat. Same thing for cows, they can hit that when they eat and they'll pass out and they can bloat. So, I was supposed to say vagal, I said vaginal. I had the most entertaining presentation the whole day, and I didn't live that vaginal stimulation down for till I got out, and it was 2 years, and even then, I would run into people I went to school with, and it would be yeah, vaginal sti but which that probably causes bloat too in cows. Gotta be careful. Vigo, like yes, the same Vigo. He is now he became a grave robber in DC. Oh my gosh, that's a good movie. I'm gonna go watch that after this. And Kittens and Crime says they drain the blood and replace it with, preservative fluids. Is that how they did it even, like, during the? Because 'cause I'm curious how I'm gonna go look it up. I know how they do it now, like, I've seen the stuff. I follow a mortician guy that, like, shows the stuff, and it's really cool, but how did they do that, like, in the 1860s, right? Like, I have questions, and I'm gonna look it up. If you guys don't wanna know, I'm just gonna look it up for myself. Maybe it's a little too graphic, But yeah, I really wanna I assume that they have to get something in the veins to get them not to, you know, be stinky. But yeah, Darlene says, yeah, the Irish don't need a whole lot of reasons to throw parties, do they? Death, birth, christenings, all of that. It's just yeah, it's fun. But and that's where, also, right, the floral arrangements, flowers at funerals were to hide the smell of decomposition as well. Ugh. So, Darlene, how did you know I was gonna talk about this? Yeah, no. So, HBO has The Mortician. That's I'm gonna tie that in. That might be Sunday's topic, and then we'll talk some ghosts too on Sunday night. But I wanna watch it. I know about this I know how this guy got caught and all of that. But go watch it. If you guys have HBO, go watch The Mortician. I think it's like 3 episodes? Think 3 episodes. But he got, um, caught doing some shady stuff with cremains. Like, he was supposed to be cremating people and was doing some other stuff, and it kinda to me, it made me think of Body Snatchers, some of the stuff he got up to. So that's I kinda wanna talk about him because it looks we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind by then, but it might not be a topic that everybody wants to talk about. It's a little true crime-ish too, so we can throw that in here. Um, wait, Lauren the Mor oh, I thought you meant the show, the one on HBO, but Lauren there's also, Caitlin too. I've given you guys her link before. She's awesome. She's so freaking funny. But I'll look up Lauren too. I like I like knowing about these things. I don't yeah, I'm a weirdo. Erica says, in the Old West in the winter, they stored bodies in the smokehouse. They usually didn't use it in the winter or barn until the ground thawed in spring. And sometimes they'd be in the root cellar. Sometimes like at the actual cemetery, they had like little um I wanna call him like a crypt, like, where they could put people until the ground thawed out, and then they could bury them. And I wanna call him a crypt, but I think there was a different word for it. I'm just blanking on it right now. Gosh, but yeah, I know they'd use root cellars and all sorts of places. Sometimes people in their own homes, if it was a really cold winter and they couldn't, yeah, they'd have grandpa or whatever down in the basement until because it was nice and cold down there until they could bury him, and I don't know, and then you wonder why some places are haunted, right? Um, yeah, I wonder how Askamore that's who I'm ta kitten, that's, yeah, that's, Caitlin, right? She just had a video out not too long ago. Um, I know she does them a little bit more and they're not as often as she used to do them, but when she does them, they're really great. And I really like her because she's very entertaining too, and like, I learned so much about green burials and mushroom burials, all of that, like, it's fascinating, like, how many different options are out there. Mississippi Squirrel Revival, that's the one I'm thinking of, like, where the squirrel went down somebody's pant leg. Would Jesus wear a Rolex on his television show, right? Oh my gosh, I'm remembering more and more Ray Stevens as we go along here. And Jen says, "When I think of body storage and winter back in the day, I think of the old washout club in Nevada. Oh my god, a large deep pit and just stacked that place, is that I think I know somebody went there to be a tour guide that I know. I think that's where she went, but yeah, that place is uber haunted too, like, I haven't been there yet, but it's on my list to someday go. I think that's on, um yeah, like, that would be but, yeah, they've got that big pit in the basement. I always wonder, like, you always hear people talk about how creepy some basements are, especially, like, in older houses. We had one, like, our old house, it started out as a root cellar, like, where like, from the outside, right? Like, it had the big doors, and then you'd step down, but then eventually they built on, and then it just became a like, just a regular it didn't have the big doors, cellar doors anymore, you could just walk down, and it was more a basement, still a Michigan basement with, just a dirt floor, but you would go down there, and my dog wouldn't go down there, like, she would like, the cats would run down there to stay away from her, she was a Jack Russell, and she didn't hurt the cats, but she liked to just chase them. And the cats knew she wouldn't go down in the basement, she would just stop right on the top step, but, like, none of us like to go in the basement, and that's where the fuse box was, like, for the whole house, so you had to go down there, like, if, yeah, you blew one of the fuses, you had to go down there, and oh my god, I it terrified me to go down there. I'm serious, like, I my heart would, like, be hammering in my chest, and I would be ready to just keel over, just so nervous to go down there, and as soon as you were done right, as soon as you were done down there, you'd flip that switch, and you just book your ass back up the stairs, right? And it had, like, the walls in the basement, they were, like, the field stone because it was the original part of the house, so that was when they first built it, like, in when was that built? Like, 1879, I think that the original part where the root cellar it would have been, like, the root cellar and just one like, a one room, right, for the house, and with the root cellar underneath it, and then they slowly kinda added on over time. But I'm wondering if they stored some bodies or something down there because it was so creepy. Like, I have no other like, I've always kind of wondered about that because you hear about people storing bodies and right, like, in root cellars and the basements and things like that, and then you hear people talk about, like, creepy old basements and creepy old houses, and, yeah, it makes me wonder. Darlene said, "I had a psych patient that died with the" Damn it, Darlene! You and Pat, I can't put your comments up here without reading them first, but so he okay, it's not a family show, so he had a hard on and you almost shit yourself. What do they call that? There's a word for that, right? Is it, starts with a P. We could learn something from this. I don't know. The one podcast I listen to, they just call it a death erection, and I don't think that's the proper medical term, but I'm gonna look it up right now because now, not death wreck, nope, that's not it. God, the stuff that's on my Google search history, I can't I can't ever get in trouble. I'm gonna go, I'm going to jail. Uh, well, actually, they do call it a death erection, but there's something else they call it too, don't they? Here it is, priapism, right? Yeah, mm, sounds sounds good. Sounds technical. I'll accept that. Um, Darlene, you're on the list now. You and Pat. I gotta pre-screen all your comments before we put them up here. That's the second penis one you've got. Well, actually, wait. The first one did get past me, but the second one did. um, and Kitten says, yeah, family was. They were the ones that bathed and dressed them back then too. Yeah, they cleaned cleaned them up and usually whatever the best right, like the best outfit, their Sunday best, was what they were buried in. Because, yeah, most of the funeral homes, I don't think they were readily available. There's another one I need to look up, and if you were, like, way out someplace that right, like, if you were trying to think, like, if you lived in a small town that maybe didn't have a funeral home, even, like, probably into, like, the 30s and 40s, right? Like, you may still, I know they still had home funerals up until at least the 40s. Darlene says, "I feared like Pet Cemetery when the father does the little boy in a grave and brings back." Ugh, that is the most I think that was the most scary of no, It. But then Pet Cemetery is a close second to It, because I don't like clowns. But that cat, Church, that terrified me. Oh my god. Whew. Oh, wait, I gotta read this. Wish my friend Jack was alive. I could have asked him. He owned a funeral home and he dealt with my daughter and the rest of the family. I you know, I'll get people like this eventually, and we'll have a good, to talk to about these things, and then I will get a proper, warning for my videos too, but, um, vasovagal. Thank you, Darlene. I knew you would know it. I should know that too because I did learn that. I did learn that. I forgot it already. Oh my gosh, yeah, I still can't believe I said vaginal. Yeah. I also called him a gentleman the erectionist too, so sorry. Oh, it's like being asked what is the opposite of oh my good you guys are like Randy tonight or what is going on? Yeah. It's like being asked what is the opposite of dominant in a genetics class and answering some did you do that? Um, because 'cause it'll make me feel better about my, yeah. It'd make me feel a lot better if you actually did do that, because I would feel better about my faux pas. And now I've got another one to talk about, so, um, and Traveling Fool says, "Yeah, we have parties just to plan a party." Yeah, it's you gotta love the Irish. And let's see, I think we've been using formaldehyde since the 1880s. Yeah, I think it was like 1880s, 1890s when it first I want 1890s is sticking in my head for some reason. I probably looked it up and it stuck there, but and Mia says, "Oh, I've been wanting to watch that." So watch it, Mia, because I'm gonna talk about him. Oh, that guy, I tell you, some of the shit it makes you wanna go back to the days when we did just take care of our own dead, right? Like, I mean, obviously, we can't well, I don't know, I guess we could cremate our own dead. It'd just take a really long time, but, um, yeah, it does make me wish we could go back to the days when we could just take care of our own loved ones. Because some of the I don't know how many funeral homes, I don't know if you guys hear about them like I do. I listen to that kinda, like it pops up for me, like, I hear it when they talk about funeral homes doing shady business kinda stuff, I listen, like, it perks up my ears. Like, just like, giving back the we'll talk yeah, that'll be the topic for when we talk about the mortician because it's some crazy stuff. Um, and, mm, you think body snatchers are bad, right? And you think that stuff all ended in the 1800s, but mm, people are still being shady when it comes to dead people. And Darlene says, "Yeah, formaldehyde has run through the veins." And, uh, the vein, because like, back in the day, like, I have to talk about, like, the ancient Egyptians. Like, I know they used honey and all kinds of things, and it's antimicrobial and a preservative. So is honey. Well, it's antimicrobial anyway, I think, isn't it? And Jen says they used a lot of arsenic in the 1800s, so much that embalmers were dying, and they introduced formaldehyde, but the main producer of it was still illegally using arsenic in it to make it better. Go figure. Um, wasn't it also arsenic was in was it oil paints? Was it oil paints too? Because like, Van Gogh and some of the they think they went mad because of or wait, no, no, no. Well, maybe that was them too. The Mad Hatter, wasn't that arsenic with the guys that made, what were they? Haberdashers? Did I get that right? I hope I got that right. Uh, and Jen says, "I learned that from Caitlin." I love Caitlin. I'm glad people know about Caitlin. She's awesome. Um, you guys are just you're full of it tonight. Is this what happens on Wednesdays? I'm gonna put them up here. I am not saying that. I'm not. I've already said too much. Priapism. I'll say that though. um, I listen to the podcast Obituary. If you guys haven't tuned in to Madison and Spencer, you have to. They're on. You can watch the podcast on YouTube now. Pardon me. If you're in my Discord, I do have their when they post a new video, it comes up on in the notifications. But they cover a lot of they always have like the like strange and unusual facts around the dead. So they've talked about postmortem erections and things of that nature. They're really funny. They're kind of like us, right? Like they're not we like to joke about this stuff, right? I mean, we're serious, but we joke about it because some of the stuff gets heavy. So, um, you gotta laugh too at it, or else, um, Eclipse is stiff. Oh my goodness, you guys, what is something in the air tonight? I have posted a picture of him in Discord. I think. Hopefully not the death erection guy, right, Darlene? I don't know if I should allow that in our Discord, but, um, I'll go check it. I'll go check it and, see if it's should be there. I think Egyptians took out all the organs and replaced them with different spices and certain plants. Yeah, and then like, what did they, like, take fabric, like, wadding or something and put inside too? Seems like, but they have to do a whole thing on the like, on the pharaohs and, what they did because they also poor animals back in those days too, like the cats, like, they got when they're right, like, they went with they had to have them in the afterlife, so I don't want my cats. Nobody I don't want them that happening to them when they die, but, Darlie says, "The Irish don't like crying at funerals, they want people to laugh and party." That's the Irish. I see the Scottish are very similar, right? Like, um, it's not an Irish wake, but hey, we've got whiskey too, so and we've got haggis, which if you deep fry it, it's not that bad, but it can be, yeah. Yeah, well, let's not ooh, haggis. And I have heard of them. They did it a lot during the COVID pandemic. There's the place out in Colorado, in Penrose, Colorado. I was just talking about this last night, and it's part of their backup, of deceased people started to happen during the pandemic, right? As they got too far behind. We discussed it with the cremations when I talked about the big tsunami in 2011 that hit Japan, and they had to quickly bury people while they waited, um, to get them cremated because they could only do so let me see if I can get this right. It takes, like, 8 hours for one body to go through the process, and so what can you get? Like, you'd have to continuously keep running shifts, right? And I think they have to I think it's 8 hours for the body, and then you gotta let the everything cool down and all of that, and that takes 8 hours or roughly that. So, you could theoretically maybe get 2 done a day um, per unit, and that's why they had to all those people there were thousands of people, right, that died, so they had to bury them, um, so that they could get caught up, essentially. So, I can't yeah, uh, the pandemic, that was nuts. I mean, you saw them in New York, right? Out on was is it Hart Island? They were just massive amounts of people being buried out there. It's just ugh, so sad. Uh, wallpaper, lots of oh, yeah, arsenic was the green colored wallpaper, right? Yeah, I think it was yeah, the green that the sorry, I gotta put a little lip balm on my lips are getting chapped from you guys talking about all this dirty stuff. But yeah, it was that the color green had has a name, but and it was a really pretty green that they all wanted on there, and it um kind of glowed a little bit or something too, didn't it? Like it looked really cool. So all the Victorians wanted it, and yeah, the Victorians, I tell you, Mercury was the Hatters. Was it Merc? I thought it was arsenic too, though. But maybe, yeah. I get a lot of these. Yeah. So Mercury was the Mad Hatter, but the arsenic was the painters, right? Because put their they would wet the end of their and I paint and I can't their paintbrush. They would wet it in their mouth and then put it in their paint, right? And then go to painting. And they think that's like why Vincent van Gogh had a little bit of was a little off, and then yeah, it's because he that's what he did quite often was to put his paintbrush in his mouth. I think it was arsenic in the oil paint, or I'll look that up too. Um, Kitten says she's a corrupting influence. Apparently, so I mean, my goodness, so am I, you guys. I started it with the Erectionist, so I swore I was never gonna make a mistake like that again after vet tech school. I was never gonna go there again. And then I did. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then they had the oh my gosh, we'll have to talk about the radium girls because supposedly you can go to their graves and you can bring what is it the Geiger counter? Is that what I want to say? Yeah. And apparently it will go off over the top of their graves. I would like to test that theory, or I would like to test that to see if that is true. But yeah, those girls, they right? And then some of them, they would put it like use it as makeup to go out. Like when they go out to party it up, right? They would put it on their like like on their like eyeliner, they would put it on their lips and things like that so that they glowed so it was iridescent, right? It glowed. And those girls, their like jaws would fall off. Oh god, it was horrific. But that's definitely one I think we can talk about on here cuz they have a grave. We can talk about them. I don't know why I'm putting such Yeah, we can talk about whatever we want to, especially at the end of the stream, we can just go crazy. And hello, Don Marie. I like the little eyeballs and the nose, it's really cute. The glow and they died from the paint, yeah. And then nobody and I think they knew that because it was radium that was in for the watch faces for the men was that World War One or World War II? I can't remember, but they were putting it on the faces for so that they could read their watch dials at night, right? And I think they knew, the manufacturers knew that that could happen, and they didn't tell these poor shop girls, right? And they were all pretty much young girls that were working in the shop, and yeah, and it's really sad. I can't imagine a worse way. Like, one of them, she lost, like, her whole bottom jaw just deteriorated, it just yeah. Oh god. But, I think there's, like, 3 that are buried right near each other at one cemetery. I'll have to look them up, and we'll have to talk about the Radium Girls, yeah. That story is really cool, and anytime I see somebody talking about it, I gotta tune into it 'cause, I mean, nothing new's come out of it, but it's still fascinating. Yeah, and Jen says, yeah, that was radium, and they even had to bury the radium girls in special way because they still gave off the toxin after death. I thought they said that they put them in, wasn't it steel metal coffins or something? But then I read somewhere else that that wasn't true. So that's why I want to look and see because I've heard it two different ways that um because they still were radioactive after they died because it was in their bones, and it takes a really long time for that to dissipate, right? Like, to but I've seen, people who do, like, the cemetery, uh like what I wanna do, like, take you guys to the cemetery, go to, like, some famous graves and things like that. I've seen them do it, and I've seen people go to one of these where the 3 women are buried. I think they're, like, side by side almost, like, they're all in the same cemetery, and I remember them taking, like, the Geiger counter. I just can't remember what if it actually went off or not, but I'll look it up. Maybe that'll be the next one we can talk about because that one is, those poor all I can say is those poor girls because, there are all these young women that were just trying to make a living, right? And yeah. Yeah, they died from horrible, horrible deaths though, Darlene, too. Not just, like, cancer, but, like, freaking faces fell off, right? Like, I don't yeah. No, Church was the kitty. I don't know why I say kitty like that. Oh my gosh. I got too far. Packed in resin soaked linen. There you go. Thank you, Erica. I knew it was something like that. We got the lemons. Boop, 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 boop. Hello again, Don Marie. All right. 8 to 10 hours to cremate. So yeah, it's yeah, and part of that is letting keep to let the unit, right? Like it's got to cool down. And well, then it's still got to go through. I don't know how much everybody knows about it. I think I learned this from Caitlin actually. Was because not everything and we'll learn if you guys go watch the Mortician on HBO, you'll learn a little bit about this stuff too, like some of the stuff that doesn't um burn up. It's mostly like your soft tissues that the most flammable, but a lot of your big bones, like your femur, like the big stuff. I'm not gonna get used to this thing right here. I'm gonna have to sit differently. Maybe I'll sit like that. Or I'll just stop moving my hands around all the time. But they actually they take you out of the all right, so it's an oven. So they take you out and they have to put you in another, like a pulverizer. So they have to all those little bits and stuff that don't break down inside during the burning process, they have to go into another machine and get all broke down. So, that probably takes some time too, but as you guys will learn when we talk about this dude, the mortician, he wasn't taking time for any of that stuff. Phew, and Mad as a Hatter came from Mercury, if I'm not mistaken, which I really we got a know it all in the chat. See, I always leave a little bit of when I think I know something, I still leave a little bit of doubt at the end just in case I'm wrong, because I am sometimes wrong. Because I do sometimes get my poisons confused, which I mean, poison's poison, but yeah, I always forget which ones did what. But the Radium Girls, now that one I don't forget because those girls, they just, yeah, they gotta. I just their story just, I don't know, it resonates with me for whatever reason. I probably would. I could have been one of those girls back in the day, right? Like I don't. Um, yeah, just young women that were just working, just do and they thought, "Hey, there look at this cool stuff that we got that we can play with, put a little on her face, we'll put some on her nails." It they didn't know that was gonna kill kill them. It's just but that is, and Tiff not hello, Tiff. Yes, we were talking about the luminescence, the radium in the paint that made it on the like, on the watch dials. Yeah, it killed I don't know how many that they I remember the one young lady's story, the one whose jaw just pretty much and she was the one that I think got the most attention because she first went in with, like, tooth pain, I think it was, and they went to remove a tooth and, like, part of her jaw came out. Yeah, I'll look it up. Is it New Jersey, Mia B? I think it is. That where they're buried? I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up. We'll talk about that one soon, cause since yeah, it's, I think there's a documentary too. I think it's called The Radium Girls. I read a book on it for my one of my book clubs once too. I wonder if I still got the book around here. And so it was World War II, which that was when a lot of women were working, right? Like, had a lot of factory jobs. Poor girls were just so happy to get out and, like, have a job, have some money of their own, right? And, mm, I'm gonna look you know what? Let me look it up real quick. Since you guys are all still here, I'll just look it up real quick. I wanna know what cemetery that they're in because yep, it was a 2018 film, and here's the book. It's called The Radium Girls: The Dark Story of America's Shining Women, and it's by Kate Moore, and I will put that in the, you guys know where I post stuff. I'll put it there, and I'll put it in the Discord too. That's the one that I read for my book club, but let me see, where are they buried? I don't think I've seen the maybe I did see the movie. See where they're buried. Yep, primarily New Jersey. Oh, there's one in Illinois. That one would be easy to get to. Says New Jersey, Illinois, and Connecticut in family plots where they lived with, let's see, Rosedale Cemetery, New Jersey, Oakwood Memorial Park, Illinois, holding several graves, so not all locations are known, and some bodies like Molly McGee's were exhumed for studies, revealing lingering radioactivity in their bones despite being buried for years. Oh god, they just showed a picture. Woo! So, let's see, Catherine Donahue is the one buried in Illinois. Rosedale That's the one. Okay, I'm gonna look and see where that is, because maybe that's one that I can go on the weekend or something, but I thought they were buried in lead-lined coffins too, Tiff, um, if I remember correctly. But it seems like if they were in lead-lined coffins, then they shouldn't be. If you go to their grave with a Geiger counter, right, like, you wouldn't think it should go off. Like, that's why I'm wondering, I can't remember what came of those experiments when I've watched people do that. Yeah, the half-life. What is the half-life of radium? Let's look that. Tiff says, "I dated a guy for a while whose grandpa invented" what is it, Indiglo? Okay, the blue light in the watches. Is that the radium? Oh. Mia says, "I remember that, Tiff." Oh my goodness. And yeah, clips. They did do that. Chimney sweeps. They'd go pluck those little skinny kids out of the orphanages, right, in, like, London and stuff so that they could shimmy up the chimneys. And they weren't all like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, right? Like, they were and they would have had diseases if they survived if they survived their childhood to even get to be adults, which yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, we got a lot of topics we can cover. Yeah, they pulverize the bone. I think it's called a pulverizing machine, isn't it? Or, somebody called it a blender. I don't know what it's probably not the proper term for it, but something I watched called it like a bone blender. And yeah, you just uh like things like teeth, uh big bones, like your smaller bones, I think will burn, but like the big ones, I'm thinking like your femurs and stuff like that. And of course, if you've got any like artificial hip, knees, anything like that, right? That's all going to be all in the all in there too. I I like it though. It's because somebody said I smack too much, and because I don't drink enough water while I'm up here. And when I get talking and I get excited, my mouth dries out really fast and my lips do too. So like I'll smack my lips. And somebody recommended that I get this. So hopefully it sounds better. I'll find out after this stream when I go back and listen, and if it doesn't, then I'm gonna be taking this off. But I do kind of feel like I'm one of those old, like I'm on one of those old radio shows. I kind of like it. I like the look of it. Like I like that vintage stuff. So like if I could get like an old timey microphone, and guys, I'd be so happy. I love old stuff. I have, it finally is back home with me where it came from, but I have, I think it would have been it's from the 40s, but it's one of those old stand-up radios. So, and it's got I'll take a picture of it and I'll post it, and then I'll show it on here too, but I think it's from the 40s and it used to be in our old house. I'm going to put, it's still got the original face and stuff on it, but, like, the speaker and all the internal stuff is all gone now because it was just all God only knows what they put in those things, right? So, that stuff all the components have been gone out of it for a really long time, but I would like to put, a speaker in it, which actually I can do that now because I have a couple little speakers I could put in there. I didn't even think about that, but I'd like to put it get it cleaned up and put up because it looks pretty rough right now. It needs some love. It's been sitting, um yeah, it sat up in our attic forever, and then I used it. I had my what do you call that thing? Um radio record player when I was little. Well, little, I mean like in my teen years, I sat my record player up on top of it, and that's what held it up. But I'll have to get it and show it to you guys. It's really cool. It before they we took them all out. It had those really cool old, I wanna say, like, bulbs, but they were, like, the transistors or whatever on the inside. It was so cool. Um, and oh, Jen, was it? The Radium Girls was partly filmed in my hometown. I think I have watched it. It's been a minute, though. Seems like that's probably one of the I think I watched that during the pandemic. I watched a lot. Well, wasn't anything else to do, especially because I had, like, a couple surgeries, like, couple 4 surgeries, like, within, like, 2 years there. I didn't do a whole lot. I just sat at home and watched TV a lot, and yeah, a lot of these I think it's near Orange, New Jersey. I think that's what something said that on there, yeah, that it was near Orange. They took the place of men because men went to war. Yeah, all those, like, those women fascinate me. I just think they're amazing. Just like, Rosie the Riveter and all of those women just getting in there and just right, like, tying their hair up, and they still wore lipstick and, like, they still had their hair done right, but they're in there, like, putting these torpedoes and all this stuff together, right, and it's just like and I go to work and, like, I ain't got no makeup on, my hair is, like, pulled up in, like, a like, yeah. So, just, like, they're stylish and they're working their ass off, doing all this stuff, right? And they're wearing their coveralls, and they look so classic still. I have a huge affection for those ladies. So, but yeah, the Radium Girls were okay, Diff. Okay, good. Whew. So it wasn't his grandpa's fault for the Radium Girls. Okay, that's good. I remember Indiglo. I remember was that Timex that had the Indiglo? Seems like I kinda um seems like I kinda remember that, like, with Timex or something. God, that's a while ago. And Erica says, "I know Marie Curie is buried in a thick lead crypt." Yeah, I bet she is. Should check her out too. Her and taking pictures of her, right? Like, doing X-rays of her own hand. It's like, "Oh, girl, no, no, you didn't." Now you can't even go get a dental X-ray without them covering all your bits up, right? To make sure they don't give you something. Humans wait, watch that. This guy's story is bonkers. Like, just yeah. I think he either worked for Timex or sold his tech to Timex. Okay. I remember the Indigo. It seems like I had one of those. Seems like I did. Yeah, I think I did a bone breaker. Put that in the blender. Oh my gosh. Uh-oh, uh-oh. She's awake. Tans, are you gonna come over and say goodnight? Wow, she must have played herself out. It was Stevie who told you that, wasn't it? No, it wasn't Stevie. It was one of my friends because she doesn't like to hear that stuff. She's like, "Would you stop doing that?" I'm like, "I didn't know I did it." I hear I watch all kinds of YouTubers, like, professional down to, like, where I am, and none of it bothers me, and I have to remind myself to, like, pick up my water or well, this is, chamomile lavender tea because I thought it would help my throat a little bit, but it's really not. I should drink more wine, though, when I'm on the street, and then watch how crazy stuff gets up here. Um I just need I need, like, handcuffs to put my just handcuff my hands down to the chair, and that way I'm not getting all well, then the rest of my body would have to I'm just, uh, fidgety. I think the only times I haven't been super fidgety when I'm up here is when I'm really, really, really tired, um, or sick. Yeah, tubes and shit inside. Tubes and shit, yeah, all those cool tubes and shit. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. She might come over here, you guys, before I'm uh-oh. Um, I think the Radium Girls were in in an episode of Drunk History. I think they were. And I think I remember, oh my god, what's her nuts? I can see the comedian who told their story to I love Drunk History. Oh my god. I wish I could be on there. Except for a lot of them end up puking by the end of the episode. And I don't wanna puke. Uh-oh, here she comes. Alright, guys. So we're to the end. So now oh, what's wrong, BB? You wanna come here? Alright, she's coming to say hi. She's gonna come say hi and good night. Wanna show everybody how big you are? Wait, 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 wait. Say hi. Tansy. Nope, that's all you guys get tonight. That's all she's gonna do. I don't know what's wrong. Aw, I think she's mad. I know she's getting so big. Remember when I could put her like one little hand and she'd sit up here? Now she's like as big as my head. Oh my goodness. Um, I'm not saying I'm not saying clips. That's why I don't show my Google history. I don't need or my Amazon. I'm not gonna ever show you guys what I buy on Amazon either. Woo, yeah, we don't need to go there. That'll have to be a spinoff channel. So yeah. Not appropriate. Yeah, those ladies, they didn't want to go back to the house, right? They had their own money. They didn't have to ask a husband or whatever. And if they didn't want to get married, they didn't have to anymore, right? Because that's most of them had to get married to get out of the house and get away from controlling fathers. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up there because I think I went way over to no. Oh no, not too bad. Okay, just a half hour over. So I don't feel like I did too bad, but huh. So I hope it wasn't too bad. Tomorrow might be a little worse though because I think I did yeah, when I said I was going to tease you guys with the good stuff for tomorrow, the good stuff tomorrow is going to be Burke and Hare. So we will talk about how they got um how they got the deceased out of the graves and things like that. So be prepared. But I will start I'll start the episode right out with that. So that way you guys can just mute it if you don't want to listen to that part and then you can pop in for the rest of it. It's not that bad. The This thing is in a museum, the picture that I'm going to show you. It's in a museum, so it's not that bad. But some people might I will try to find I probably do need a disclaimer with some of the stuff that we talk about. So, um especially if Darlene's in the chat and she's got her pens out. I should probably put something up. Viewer discretion is advised. But tomorrow we're going to talk about Burke and Hare, and it's not a hair product or shoe wear. Like Burke and Hare always sounds like Birkenstocks. Okay, never mind. And then we're going to talk about Vigo Jansen, um, who was not the erectionist, but now I can't even remember what he was. Resurrectionist. Oh my god, you guys. The, what? Ugh, she keeps looking over here like, you come over and say hi if you want to. All right, she's just being a. I think she heard me talk about her poor management skills. Now she's mad at me. So, yep. Oh well. I'm used to it. All right, guys. Be back tomorrow night, same time, 9 o'clock. So 2 nights in a row, you guys get to be annoyed by me. And I appreciate you guys letting me annoy you. And I think that's it. So thank you guys for being here. Love you guys. And that's a wrap. I did not make a new outro. So you're just going to have to put up with that one. That's just my baby. She's my baby. I love her. Um, Yeah, I was saying goodbye. You guys don't distract me. See, you do this, and then I start for another 15 minutes about talking about the cat. Alright, I'm gonna put these up there. I'm gonna say thank you guys because I love ya, and you guys always put up with me, and I'm glad. I hope nobody threw up. I hope you guys laughed about the pens that Darlene kept talking about. And alright, here goes the outro. It is, it's gonna come up, right? I think oh, I hope I put the right one on here. Alright, we'll see. Alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow.